Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Namo Kofi Joe. This is The Roof is on Fire. We don't need no water. Let that burn, baby, burn. Sometimes I wish I just anyway. Let me get to the topic at hand. We got about an hour, and I'm gonna try to go through some things tonight. Make sure you subscribe, listen in. I'm on a lot of different socials, but follow me on Awakening Kinship on Instagram, Awakening Kinship on Facebook. I'm also have a website, which is africaonthemove.com. I try to keep that updated pretty regularly. I'm kind of falling behind. There's a couple of things that I haven't put up, especially on my revolutionary poem section. But I do try to keep updated on my paintings. As you see in the background, I've completed another painting. This one is called No Harbor. It's on my series on Something's in the Water. I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight more as I get into the topic. Because tonight I'm going to talk about my crafting, what I go about to create different pieces of art, the process that I put into it, and hopefully get the results that I want and the results that I'm looking for with my work. So we're going to get started. And as first, we like to do some kind of geopolitical education. I'm not a political scientist. I have studied African history. I like to study African heritage. So I tend to base my thinking off of what I've learned through the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and then my own research and study that I've done since then. And since I've no longer been a part of the party, even though the party's line I try to follow and contend with on a regular basis when I come and talk to people about what we need to do as a people, how we need to get organized, and what does victory look like. I borrow a lot from other people's opinions, a lot of other people's points of view, because it aligns with the way I think. So I try to keep that in mind when I speak. I try to let everyone know that I'm a collective of thought, not a monolithic thought, I guess, if that was way you want to put it, or individualistic thought. I try to incorporate the teachings and beliefs and the ideas that a lot of us share and that I hear and I listen to, and they align with the way I think. So let's get into it. What's been going on? We as African people, and I like to use the word African people because we have been divided, we have been colonized. And in that colonization, we tend to come up with names that represent and associate ourselves with the person who colonized us, to be honest. And if we were to look at our conditions based off of land, we would understand that the land that we, and I don't like using the word claim neither, but the land that brought forth African people, even the term African is a colonized term. But when I look at the name Black, I tend to have I can understand why we call ourselves Black. That's not a question. The color is considered to be Black, so we definitely want to identify with the color. Negro is another color is reference. But as an artist and as a crafts person and someone who spends a lot of time using the color Black, I like to be able to say that I'm a lot more, or I like to be able to contend with myself as being um, a human being that is part of this earth. And this earth has land on it that we stand on, that we sit on, that we swim on, all types of things. And our relationship to the land, I feel, is the most important. So I like to refer to myself as African. That is a land that I associate myself with. That's the land that I feel I can contribute to the most. And it's also a land that we all have some kind of origin story to. So to me, calling myself African it just doesn't, I changed my name. I changed my name to reference Africa. I took Namo. Namo is actually from the Dogon people. The origin of that group of people were in Mali, and they were descendants of ancient people that were part of Kemetic philosophy and tendencies, and traveled across the continent of Africa with some of those belief systems and settled in the Mali region. I am not going to sit here and try to profess that I know everything about why I chose that name, because I don't. Actually, when I chose that name, it was based off of some writer here in the United States who said that Namo meant the generative and productive power of the spoken word. And that was back in the 80s, I would say around 83, 84, 85. Um, and I was very deliberate. I was very intentional about the choice of my name. Uh, for many years, I have been speaking and talking as I felt I was an African, but I didn't have an African name. And people would always say, "Why don't you have an African name?" And I chose an African name that I felt best suited me. My Kemet in the background there, he just won't let me have a conversation without him showing out. Kemet, can I do this without you back there scratching? Huh? Can you just sit down for a little bit and let me do this? Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, but my African name is Namo Kofi Jope. Kofi is the day Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But that was also the date of the week that I chose. And Jope is actually a name of Achant Ate Jope, who is actually a historian, a teacher of Kemetic belief systems, teacher of African studies. And I haven't read deeply into his work, right? I just like the word Jope. And at the time, I think I was calling it Diop. And I got corrected by some folk who told me that it was a French name and it's pronounced Jope. So, I mean, it worked for a lot of reasons. And they weren't all necessarily, uh, from study. Uh, when I was around 17, 18 years old, there was a group. There were these three brothers, and they used to do this, put on these events, and they had a production company, and their production company was called NKD. And I know a lot of y'all ain't gonna understand why what that's about, but that was to me that was like I wanted to be a part of NKD, and at the time they were looking at me like I was crazy, but I wanted to work with them. I wanted to build with them. I never knew later on in life that I would choose a name that had the initials NKD. But but it just, like I said, there's a lot of things that happen in the universe that you don't really understand why, and they just kind of work for you. So, by the time I chose my name, I also had my initials that I wanted, right? So, a lot of my initials work for me, NKD. So, call it what you want, do what you got to do with it. But that was just me. It was the energy was flowing right when I heard NKD, and and I didn't necessarily pick the names based on that acronym, but or those initials. But you know how things work. It just Namo, creation story from the Mali Dogon people. There were two Namos, and my birth date, the day I was born, and then a great, powerful person that we all need to take a look at and read more of. I have a few of his books, and He's well regarded in all circles around the education of our people about Africa. So that's why I chose that name. And that's a little, there's some geopoliticalness in my name, I believe. But let's just talk about what's going on in the world today, how limited we are in our thinking when it comes to who we are as a people. Because when we do think about who we are as a people, it does play a reflection on who we're thinking about and what we're thinking about. Africa has been colonized, meaning to me that Africa has, since the 1500s, basically has been operating under the control or under the guise of outsiders. And even probably way before that, if you want to carry on what happened with the Arabs on the continent as well. So the thought, the African thought, the African craft, the African philosophies have been dealt with, have constantly had intruders dealing with them, dealing with the way they think. So we have a problem in a lot of ways, because what is African thought and our African personality in an environment that is filled with invaders, filled with people who have come to be discursive, meaning that they're telling you one thing and doing another. They are constantly saying that they're your friend, but stabbing you in the back at the same time. That's discursive language. They don't have love for you. They don't even see you. You're not real to them. You're imaginary. And whether you're imaginary or real, they're too busy thinking about themselves. They're too focused on who they are as a people to have any time to any regards for you. That's why things end up the way they do. Um, Sonia Massey was the latest, and not the latest, because I'm sure today there was somebody else. But the story of this woman who was in her home where these armed police officers came in over, they're just their presence alone was overpowering, but came in and shot this woman in the head. And I don't even want to talk about her. I don't feel that it's necessary. I want to talk about the people who, for whatever reason, did not see her. They did not hear her. They did not have any empathy toward her. They would never come to her defense, but were yet still in her house with loaded weapons pointed at her head and shot her in the head. That's all I want to talk about. This woman was in her home, and the two police officers came in and shot her in the head. I was driving, when I was walking this morning, I passed some police officers, and I couldn't even give them time of day. To be honest, I was looking at them like, what is your job? Kimmy, I told you, could you sit down and relax? You got to talk to him. We got to talk to him on a regular. He listening, but he somehow feel like he want to, get in the act. But anyway, what is the police department? Would they ever come to your defense? I don't understand I don't care how any situation could develop where you need to call the police officer. I may be a paramedic, maybe the fire department, but what purpose do police officers serve? And to what capacity do we need them in our community? I believe that our communities will do better off if there's a problem that goes on in our community, that there's a group of members in our community that are willing to address it before they call the police. The police should be the last resort. And even at that point, I don't even think they should be called. We should have a system designed that provides people adequate living, uh, a job that pays well, an education that teaches them to liberate themselves and their own community. And if we address the root problems of what goes on in our community, we wouldn't need prisons, we wouldn't need jails, we wouldn't need police officers. This is the problem I have with police officers. Matter of fact, there's a problem that's larger than the police officers. That is capitalism. Capitalism is racist. Capitalism started in slavery. Slavery was beyond comprehension of race. They didn't, to be honest, I don't even think they looked at race as part of their issue. They looked at us as a product, as a means to an end, a necessary condition to build capitalism. Capitalism is the result of a group of people who did not want to live amongst other people and pay, or not even pay, to live amongst people as basic laborers, where we all worked for the same good, we all worked for the same subsistence, and we also weren't here to destroy the earth. Capitalism has been on a mind bend that basically creates a world which we live in that is environmentally injustice, environmental injustice, gender-based oppression, and the masses of the people find it more important to play games, watch games, be entertained, be entertainers, vote for people who will keep this system in place rather than voting for people that will tear it down. And just all around, the laws are based on protecting property over people. The system is based on profit over people. The politics are based on not people, not democracy, on making sure that rich people stay in power. So when you put all that together and you look at the way the world is, I know I'm not like speaking for everyone. I'm speaking for myself. That it's hard for me to imagine a system that can anyway be beneficial to the masses of the people. Yet the masses of the people, whether they see something wrong with it or not, will not, due to their own self-interest, will not look at it any differently. And I would have to say that if their self-interest was guided in something that they felt more creative they could do, I believe maybe they would change. I do believe that posed with the right situations, I think anybody would change. And it doesn't have to be by the force of a gun, or losing a job, or whatever that they might feel they might be obligated to. Excuse me. I do believe that that we are human enough to see the error in our ways. But when the error of what we're doing is discursive language here, when the error of what we're doing is posed as being correct, like the idea that we need to stop Hamas because they're a terrorist organization against Israel is the smokescreen. What's really going on is that the American military production industry needs to sell bombs. So they need an enemy. They need a good guy. They can't sell as much weapons to Hamas as they can sell to Israel. Israel, for whatever reason, has more money, right? Or more interest in American politics than Hamas does. And they're a better source of dumping millions and millions of dollars towards than there is to Hamas, who might, if you dump the same amount of money, build a socialist society. Our society is less capitalist. And Israel is a capitalist country. And they want to make sure that capitalism is spread around the world. So we have to be careful on the language that we use. I really don't want to get into this, but lately I've been kind of swayed into the idea that voting, quote unquote, voting can be effective in making major changes. I'm still struggling with that. I don't think I'm there yet. Hopefully I never will be there yet, but who knows? I can be persuaded. But the idea that there are policies in place that we can gather enough votes around, we can organize around to make incremental changes within the society to better the people that live in the society, I can agree with. I can agree with that 100% because I understand enough about politics to know that if you get enough people together to vote for something, that the people that voted for it can win if there's enough of them to vote for it. So I am not in any way, shape, or form against people's right to vote. What I do believe, though, is that where people don't vote, it's also just as effective in causing the problems that we're faced with. And the disorganization that goes on in our community, and I mean, there are things that can make our organization, our communities more organized. But when you're fighting against things in our community that are disorganizing us and not addressing them, we're only addressing the ideas that we need to get organized. I think we really do need to have a conversation around that. Because I do believe, Kemet, I do believe that we do have an opportunity to look at what is disorganization within our community. And, I have my own opinions on that. I have my own views. They may not be everyone else's. I don't think I really want to get into that tonight, but I do believe in organization. I do believe that we need to be more organized as a people. And I do believe that you should be involved in some type of organization. And an organization that's working for the people, okay? Organization that's the benefits are coming back to the people. Any organization that is working for profit, in a lot of ways, is the same type of what I'm trying to explain about the disorganization that we are caught up in for a lot of reasons. Economically, politically, whatever what you're interested in, definitely plays a part in your politics. And I think I'm going to leave it for that there for now. I have a lot of other things I want to get into tonight. And I think I've talked enough about that to a point where, the next time, more I talk about it, just going to go more and more down a path, the tangent that, I may not want to get off of. But let's talk about the underwater craft show. Something I'm really excited about. I've been talking about this for probably about 3 months. It's about 3 months away. It'll be October 26th at the African American Museum here in Dallas from 7 to 11. Uh, I will be showcasing the work that I've been doing this year. Also, other artists I've invited. Hopefully, they want to attend and show their work. But I definitely want this to be an event where art, our craft, as I should say, and let me break that down. The reason why I call it a craft show, because as you see at the picture in the background, there has been this underwater. Let me just read it to you because it's fresh in my mind, and I don't want to overstep uh, my thinking at this point when it comes to this idea because it's taken a long time to put it in words. Okay, so underwater, the inescapable tomb for those who chose the sea. African liberation rather than drowned within whiteness. Defiant African minds totally preserve, totally remember the undying love for the people unforgotten. Craft Show is an event created to turn the tide. I don't know if I can explain it any better than that. That was a lot, and but it's clear to me, and it means a lot that these people that you see in these paintings that you will see have taken on the idea that the only way they were going to escape whiteness, meaning meaning the total domination and conquering of themselves as a people, was to choose the sea. That was it. That was the tomb, the inescapable tomb, the place where the Europeans could not have any influence on them. The Arabs, any outside force could not have any influence on them. They could they could take what they had inside with them. At the same time, they could preserve it. They could bring it to a point where it was totally remembered. The undying love for people unforgotten. And when you think about that and you think about the world that we live in, none of it's been preserved. None of who we are as a people has been preserved. None of what we are as a people has been remembered. Many of us, I can remember growing up as a child, that our parents used to say that when you talked about anything that had to do with us or about being enslaved, they would say, "No, we don't want to talk about that. We don't know. We don't talk about that." Well, matter of fact, we're not going to even bring that up. And that used to bother me because if we don't, and I'm sure that they had good reason because not everybody's going to talk about it in a way that's going to be productive. And criticism gets waged a lot of times on why we were enslaved. And then most of that criticism is waged towards us and not toward the people that enslaved us. I've had more people say that, it was our fault that we were enslaved. And I don't know how that could be. I can't even imagine how that could be. How could it be that a group of people that can come across oceans to a continent with Bibles and guns and trinkets and induce, convince, con somebody to give up human beings for those type of things, and it being our fault? I could see if we went over there and to Europe and or the Americans said, here, I'm here, coming here to be a slave. Let me do what you need me to do because I want to be a slave. I can see that being our fault. I definitely that was that type of stuff just don't happen. Okay, so when we look at this whole idea of uh, what we have become in this country or in any place outside of Africa or even on the continent of Africa, none of it could have been done if we lived in a isolated environment where we were able to produce and to cultivate who we are as a people without being interrupted, without being, spied upon, without being interpreted in a way. The ideas of what we did as a people were what people interpreted, what people came over and saw us doing and said, this is what you're doing, not taking in any account what we were doing or how it worked for us. It looked like to them, oh, this is an easy way of getting over on these folk. And they took full advantage of that. We could have been living in an environment, and I'm just speculating, but we could have been living in an environment where it was just abundance. You know, you what you need. I got that. You want do you got something? Okay, I'll take that. There was a clear sense that we were in a land of plenty. We did not need the type of warfare or land grabs that and I'm sure most indigenous people did around the world. I'm not to say that there wasn't fights, there weren't arguments, there weren't disagreements, but the level that we went to in those struggles became highlighted or even more induced by the intrusion of different people. That could happen in any situation. That could happen amongst your brothers and sisters. That could happen amongst your closest friends. So there's nothing superhuman about us. There's things that we've done that have been inhuman to each other. So I'm not here to speculate on what Africa would have been like if it hadn't been um, involved in the institution of slavery. We were involved in the institution of slavery as the slaves. There's some sisters Brit who like to say that we were enslaved. I guess we could call ourselves enslaved if slavery had ended, but I don't see us as being out of slavery. So at one point, saying yourselves, we were not slaves, we were enslaved. Meaning that somehow it's over. We've come to the end of it. I don't see that. Slavery formed capitalism. Now we're just wage slaves. Are we waged enslaved? Maybe so. Maybe that's what I need to break down to. I'm waged enslaved, which really don't make no sense. But to be honest, we are enslaved, and we are enslaved to our wages. And so you want to call yourself enslaved? We need to talk about how we're gonna get out of slavery. How we're gonna get out of this economic system that has caused a myriad of problems, a myriad of situations. So yes, October 26th at the African American Museum here in Dallas. You can go on my page, Africa on the Move. I'm posted it all over the place. I've been trying to explain the idea, um, And there's one other part that I want to say before I move on. Um, so, in the gaze of Europeans, there's nothing real or imaginary about African people because whiteness is only thinking about being white and dominating the rest of the world. There's no need to reinterpret our heritage to fit in to the narrative of a criminal and a thief. These are some of the things that I've been posting. We're gonna post that today, probably tonight sometime. But clearly, we are in a situation that has caused us to kind of flip what reality is on top of its head. And there's a lot that I could talk about that, but I don't have all that time or energy to get into it. And I'm really just talking to myself because, at this point, it's just documentation. And, I'm trying to make sure that, you know, there is something that there was some method to my madness. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to try to get into the processes I go through to paint and to draw or to do my craft. Okay. This piece that you see behind me probably took, I'd say over 2 months, but not 2 months consecutively, not 2 months, maybe an hour, hour and a half here or there. So if I probably put all those hours in the 2 months together, I kind of always figured it's about 48 hours. And I could be more or less around that number. But there is a certain process that I go through. And I want to try to describe some of that tonight. Uh, First of all, I spend a lot of time drawing. So I have a lot of drawings. Let me show you one of the drawings that I'm going to be working on for the next time. Okay. So these drawings are in a drawing book, but what I do is I'll take the drawing out of the book and copy it. What I feel like I got to the point of this is something that I want to paint or draw. So this is I don't know. This is always an issue. So this here will be a painting. Okay. At this point, I don't 100% know what I'm gonna call it. I think I already had a name. I just haven't comes to my attention right now. And then here is another one. This is a little different, but these are both part of this Something in the Water series. And I notice when I do this Something in the Water, they're in the water, but they're not underneath the water. I know that the craft show that I'm giving will be called Underwater. Because in a lot of ways, it's not just my artwork. I guess that's probably why I don't call it Something in the Water, because that's what I'm doing. But when I call it the underwater exhibit, I'm using all of these different points of views of what was not forgotten, what was remembered, what was preserved uh, through what we have went through as a people uh, who chose to see. So that's kind of like where I chose that title, um, and while I'm gonna ride with it, you know. Hopefully, we're gonna try to do this every year. We're gonna try to continue this idea, but it's important. I think that there's a lot of us who believe that our heritage or our history started in slavery. And I think if we do that, we give this system and this society too much credit. Um, I don't want to do that. I want to give all credit, honor, dignity to those Africans who wanted something way more than what was being given to them or what was being taken away from them or was being forced upon them. So yeah, so this is the process. So um, at the point of this point, I used to use actually an overhead projector, and I would actually try to be precise on taking the drawing to the canvas because I wanted to make sure that I got every essence of what this drawing was. But now I've kind of gotten away from that because I felt like um, that always didn't work as well. I mean, I could still do it if I felt like I really needed to, But now I also kind of have another approach, which I was using when I did the overhead projector. But I would take the copy, fold it in half, make it 4 quarters, okay? And then whatever the painting would be, I would do the same. I would have a pencil, and I would draw the lines on the paper that I just folded. So that way, when it came time for me to draw it, I would know exactly what piece of the drawing went in what quadrant, what section. Okay, it's a pretty simple and easy technique. I don't think I think it's probably been around for a long period of time. But you see now, you see how the lines will make up the 4 quadrants. And then what I'll do is I'll draw on the painting, on the canvas, whatever dimensions a canvas is, I'll do that the same way. I'll draw that out. And then I'll be able to take west to each corridor and put that in the painting. And so, because I have been drawing for a long period of time, so I got to the point where why am I tracing this? Like, I should be able to draw it. I've been drawing. I know how to draw, so I've kind of gotten away with it. So this painting I actually drew onto the canvas using the method I showed you. I have another painting here that I did in the same type of way, but that's kind of just laying the usually in charcoal, laying out the painting and the dimensions. And then I'll go over it with a gesso, white paint. And, I could do black paint too. But then I would have to go over it with a white chalk instead of a black chalk. But I lay that down so that the painting, I don't think I really do it as well as I should, but it does give the painting a little more texture right off the bat rather than just painting straight to the canvas. But I think there's some areas there that I could do more of. I could actually paint a nice thick layer of gesso on the canvas to give it another kind of a texture or feel. And I don't know if I'm gonna try that, but I could. Okay, so after I do that, and being that these are black and white paintings, it's kind of been working really good for me. Is because I can paint I can charcoal in the picture, then I can come over with a white paint and take out all of the erase all of the lines that I messed up with in the drawing of it onto canvas, and then I can come back in with some black paint and go over some of the highlights and some of the, delineate more of the lines of what I want to be able to do. And I can come back over with the white paint and erase some of the black points that didn't delineate properly. And I just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth till I get to the point where I know that I got the basic idea down. Because that's actually the arm on this picture that you see on the back, the arm that's furthest in the background. I had to play with that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily look at the way it should look from every different angle. But when you look at it, just painting straight on, I felt like that was the best way of expressing this, this kind of feel like that. And, I probably should have done that too when I did the painting, had my arms out. And that's another thing that you can do is like, I could have taken this picture and had a model and had that person pose in that position, me take a picture of him, and then use that person as the drawing's model. And so all of those things are ways of achieving what you want to in art. You definitely have to think about it. I didn't think about that. But by being on the video now and watching it and looking at it, I can see where I could have done that. And that could have made a lot more sense. It's just a matter of the degree that you want to achieve what you want to achieve with your artwork. There's certain things in this painting that I felt like once I achieved them, I was good. I wasn't necessarily trying to make it realistic, but I did want some realism in it. I wanted some believability, something to know that Yes, you're looking at somebody that's, looks like they're standing in the water. They don't look like they're sinking. They don't look like they're floating. They look like they're just a statue in the water that somehow or another is being held up. Um, I wanted to make the water look like it receded as it went back. So there's a darker color in the front. There's a lighter color in the back to make it look like there's some kind of sun shining or some light coming and hitting it. Um, I definitely wanted the person's expressionless face. Um, I don't want them happy. I don't want them sad. I don't want them emotional. I just wanted them to be this conceptual idea of what we were taking to the bottom of the ocean with. This idea that somehow or another who we were as a people was way more important than where we came from or where we're going. And it needed to be preserved. It needed to be remembered by some people who did not forget. They were not going to forget. Unforgotten. There's parts in me. When I think about all of the creativity that has happened amongst us as a people, I believe that's that unforgotten part of our creative self that remains to this day in us. I don't believe that somehow or another what we had to go through in these 400 years of slavery created something new. I don't believe we created ourselves to be a new people, a new culture, a new idea. I believe whatever we carried over here with us, we don't give credit or homage to. That is those who left it in underwater, those who chose the sea, those who fought for us, those who resisted. Why would we resist unless we had something that we felt that was greater than anything that this what we were going through? And yet we don't honor that. Yet we act like when somebody says, what was slavery like? Well, you need to forget about what slavery was like. You shouldn't even talk about slavery. What we're telling ourselves is that we don't believe that there was anything that was creative enough that we want to hold on to, that was left behind, that was forgotten, that we can't remember, that we can't preserve. There is something that we can preserve. There is something that should be remembered or always remembered. There is something that is uh, not forgotten. And we express that. We're self-expression through exposure. Once we're exposed to those tragic onslaught of slavery, we understand, well, now I get it. Now I know where I got that from. Now I know why I think the way I do. Now I know why I feel the way I do. This set of paintings comes when I'm at the age of 65 or close to 65. I'll be 65 in September. Someone asked, how did I get here? What was my bioethics? And even though I was in the midst of doing this work at the time, it also was also where a point out, like when you do artwork, it's a process that you go through. Now you might say you're going to paint something, but what is that process going to look like? What are you going to go through in the implementation and the application, the adaptation of what that means to you as a person? So this set of work, meaning that it's a total departure from what I've usually done in a lot of ways. Still using the same talent that I think I have, but it's the fact that I've chose to do it in all black and white. They're all related to uh, the sea, and they're all African people who are in different, compositions expressing these three things. One, the preservation of who we were as a people, the remembrance of who we were as a people, and this unforgotten creativity. Now, maybe y'all don't see that. Maybe y'all ain't gonna get that, but that's what I'm trying to do. And you know, as an artist, you know, and I've got this from a lot of other artists along the way, is that you have to do what you do. Um, there's no rules to it. I mean, you know, in some ways, I think you do need to study art or study, you know, your craft, you know, to the point where you can decide to let all of what you learned go, which I think I did. But you know, I'm sure I didn't learn all the things that I should have learned. You know, I saw all the things I could have learned, all the things I wanted to learn. You know, but I wasn't at a point where I was going felt like I was going to get to a point where I was just going to be a master. You know, and I don't even like that word, master of what I do. So you know, I was basically settling with techniques, you know, skills, you know, that I could acquire, and then just put what I put forth. I mean, because you know, sometimes when I look at some of the other people's work, not to try to talk about them, but uh, I question sometimes, you know, who's critiquing your work, right? Who's curating your work, and you know, I'm not here to talk about nobody, so I ain't gonna do that. But you know, you ain't gonna talk about my work, okay, buddy? You know, without me saying that I don't believe that my masterwork has to match anybody else's. I made it a point to have my own style, my own composition, my own concepts. You know, that was important to me. You know, um, I don't know what other artists want to do in life, but I don't want to copy no artists. I don't want to imitate any artists. You know, I want to be able to make sure that I have done some work that has, you know, clearly come from the inside of my soul. These people that I draw are people that are coming from the inside of who I am. I don't see them out here. You know, they did not choose to live in this society. And what I realized is I've been drawing these people all my life. I've been doing this type of work since I was a kid. And so that's what I feel good about, you know, that this is a honest, sincere expression of how I see myself, how I see uh, our future, how I see our past, and how I live in the present. You know, the artwork is emanating from my, being, and I've done so much of it now that you know, it's it's hard to question, you know, why I'm doing it. There's times I could have given up a long time ago, and I never stopped. So I always say that something in the water is weird the something. Our people are the something, whether it be in the past, present, or the future. We are that something. And the water has represented a preservation, a remembrance, a unforgotten part of who we are as a people. Water is a lot of times people can look at water a lot differently, and I'm going to get into that too. But water, I think our bodies are made up of like 70% water. Water is the most sustainable resource we have on the planet. If it wasn't for water, who on this planet, the plants couldn't grow, you know, we would dry up, you know. Uh, so water is a very powerful source. And to disconnect from the water, to somehow or another, or to connect with the water, or somehow be a part of the water, I felt that it was a way of expressing an idea about something that just can't be lost. It just and it's always found. So I got about 5 more minutes left. I'm gonna try to wind this up. I've been talking for quite a while. I'm It's July 31st, so I was able to get this in the month of July, so I'm feeling really good about that. Um, I will be back in August, Black August. Uh, Today is the Pan African Women's Day. In 1962, women organized to before the OAU, the the Organization of African Unity, and the sole purpose was not only for environmental justice, but was also for gender-based oppression. So I'm feeling really good about being on this day, showing you this picture about uh, a system that we're living in that has destroyed the earth, destroyed us as human beings. I'm on a really big kick now on a vegetarian, and I'm reading some really good literature on that, books, um, finding that we just live in a very sick society, and they want us to be sick. They want us to die. Just there's no other purpose for us. So they can just carry on. I was reading something today talking about we ain't gonna be around in the next 150 years, and we should just be happy and living our lives. And I'm thinking to myself, you mean with all the things that are going on in the world, and you thinking that just because you ain't gonna be around next 150 years, you ain't got to worry about it. I mean, you ain't got to pay attention to it. You ain't got to organize against it. I thought that was, it was typical of some of the things you hear and deal with on a regular in this society. This constant, fantasy of, you know, inhumanity. This discourse, this cursive language that makes you feel really good about yourself while other people are struggling. Well, other people can't afford to do what they want to do, you know. And I like to believe that one reason I do this is also to make some change, bring about some type of revolutionary struggle. Um, there's so much is going to be going on in the next few months for me that I have to be ready. I got to be ready. I got to be, focused. I've been reading and listening and hearing a lot of different things. Hopefully, I can incorporate some of those things into my work. Um, uh, you know, I think that uh, in some ways, what I'm doing is also trying to um, document what is going on in my life. And, you know, growing up in the 60s in San Francisco, and then moving to Dallas, after I retired, I've been to a lot of different places around the world. I, I feel like I have something to share. I have something to offer. And so I hope that you get that too. You know, love to hear what you think and to know what your thoughts are. So again, you can go to africaonthemove.com. That's africaonthemove.com. You have all my social information. You can go to Awakening Kinship on IG, on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I think Africa on the Move, or excuse me, Awakening Kinship there too. We down to about the last minute. Uh, just want to say that this struggle is real, and we can't be faking the funk, and the roof is on fire, and we don't need no water. Let that MF burn, okay? Let it burn to the ground. Let's just stomp on it. We ain't got time for this. Ain't got no time for this. This thing has got to go. All right. Don't y'all know? I have been putting together a few little raps for y'all, but I'm gonna leave that too, because y'all know I ain't ready. But I think I am. Okay. But yeah, forward ever, backwards never. always keep Africa alive in your thinking, in your thought patterns. Always ask that question, what does Africa need from me? Forward.